Brad Hill here. There is no better way to share a story than around a campfire. And if you are in the Mobile Bay area, there is no better place to get firewood than our friends at Mobile Bay Firewood. This is a family-owned business, and I personally love using their easy-to-light, kiln-dried firewood in my fire pit. So use promo code MBFTSO for $15 off of your next order at mobilebayfirewood.com. Longtime friends of the podcast, the Growley Leather Company is a family-owned leather goods company in southern Alabama. All of their leather goods are designed and handcrafted to come alongside you in your daily life, share in your adventures, and reflect your character. Bryan and I both enjoy products from Growley Leather. So visit growleyleather.com and use promo code TSO2022 for a 15% discount at checkout. Find you a leather journal and fill it with stories from the Storied Outdoors. Welcome to the Storied Outdoors. It is season 5, folks. I can't believe
season 5, Brad.
Season 5 is here. Welcome. My buddy Bryan is joining me as always. My name is Brad Hill, and Bryan Gill is on the other side. And then joining us for this introductory podcast is a return to the podcast, Wade One Bug Blevins. Thanks for joining us, Wade.
Isn't that your? I think that's your Sam's in there, right?
Yeah.
So yeah,
I think that's your email or that's what pops up on my phone whenever like you text me. It's like Wade One Bug Blevins. So
that's funny.
Wade Blevins joining us to talk about some experiences that we had together, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. But I wanted to start us off with a quote that you'll realize is very appropriate from Norman McLean. A river runs through it. He said, "Poets talk about," he quotes, "spots of time. But it is really fishermen who experience eternity compressed into a moment. No one can tell what a good spot of time is until suddenly the whole world is a fish and the fish is gone." Norman McLean, "A river runs through it."
Awesome.
Feels like that sums up a story that we'll tell later. But man, it's been a great summer. I can't believe summer's over, guys. Man, my kids start school tomorrow. So the summer blew by, man. Packed summer for everybody, I think, Bryan.
Man, and it seems like you just anticipate the summer coming, kids out of school. June seems to last a long time, and then July, August, school start is all within like a 2-week span. I mean, it is. Yeah. It was basically our family vacation was in July for the 4th of July, and then it was over. I mean. It's crazy. Yeah. So, but we had a packed.
Y'all packed in a lot.
Man, we did something about almost one thing per month. Some, I think May had 2 big adventures for us. So let me just start in April. I went on a bike ride with my mentor and friend and former boss when I was working in Tennessee, Bill Choate. He and I were on a New York City 5-borough bike ride. It was 40 miles through the city. It was incredible way to see
the city. Yeah.
It was completely closed course. We were going through the 5 boroughs and just, man, what a phenomenal trip. There's going to be an essay that I'll probably write about that. And
I look forward to that.
Yeah. So I'm looking forward to getting that on paper. In May, I think we foreshadowed this a little bit about Sarah, my wife, wanting to learn how to fly fish. And, the best husband hack I have ever came up with was hiring a guide and allowing him to teach her to fly fish so that I didn't have any frustration. I was just my role was, "Hey, that looks great, babe. Good job.
Yeah.
Man, way to go." So who did I hire?
Craig
Godwin.
Yeah. Who else? Who else?
So we made the decision. We could go up in North Georgia, North Carolina, and do some fly fishing in the Smokies, or we could go do some fly catching, some bass catching,
or
you go catch
That's
some
amazing.
fish on the fly on the
That's
Tallapoosa.
right. That's right, man. This episode brought to you by East Alabama Fly Fishing. No, I'm just kidding.
100%. Yeah.
Kidding, not kidding. Love those guys so much, man. When we got to go on that trip, it's still one of my favorite guided trips that I've been on.
And we were on a completely different section of water, and it
Amazing.
was the same. Absolutely the same. Sarah caught a really nice 18-inch spot.
It's a hybrid.
Yeah. It was on a top water. I think it was a boogle bug or something like that. Sorry, Wade. They
work, right?
They do work. They caught some big fish on that, but seeing her pull that thing in and just seeing how big that fish was, it was really cool.
That's awesome.
Later that month,
I feel like just a sidebar. This is total extra rabbit, but I feel like we need a sticker that's like clearly a red eye bass that's called a hybrid.
We can make that happen.
Would that be like copyright infringement? Like that's still funny to me.
Oh, that's so funny.
It's funny that you said going catching too. My kids for years would ask me when they were growing up, "Hey, Dad, when are we going catching?"
When we going catching.
It wasn't fishing; it was catching.
That's right.
And so that's good. I like that terminology.
Yeah. You don't want to, when you're trying to teach somebody to fly fish, you don't want them to just catch snags and trees all day, man. If you're listening to this podcast and you're trying to learn how to fly fish, call up a guide and go somewhere where you're going to do some catching. I mean, call up the guys at East Alabama, call up Stephen Rockerts with Fly Fishing Alabama. I mean, those guys will put you on the fish. You'll have a great time.
Yeah.
You'll have an incredible shore lunch. Stephen keeps on adding stuff to his burger.
I know. Hey, I want to go.
I know. I'd pay that money just to go eat that shore burger.
That's right.
But just go out there, get a guide. Don't try to figure it out on your own, because that is a lot of fun to do with someone who knows what they're doing, and they can really teach you, and you'll be catching rather than just fishing.
That's right, dude. You guys, I was envious. You got to do some hiking on the famed Appalachian Trail, right? Did you ever do that?
Yeah. So we did a 20-mile loop up to Gregory Bald. It was a 3-day hike.
Wow.
And it was me and Sarah, who's my wife, her sister and my brother-in-law, and then 2 friends from South Alabama. He's a pastor. Really want to have a conversation with him on the podcast about some things. Man, it was just such a fun group. Hiking, we're all just kind of taking a leisurely pace. We did the hard stuff on the first day, and which was a really good call. So my props to my brother-in-law for JD for planning that trip out, because man, he put us up for success. Did that hard part the first day, and I'm not gonna tell all the details, but we had a few encounters that were very interesting, to say the least.
Furry encounters.
It got a little furry there for a minute.
Yeah,
but it was unbelievable.
Which is going to turn this into a whole nother podcast about Sasquatch. I'm just kidding. Totally kidding.
Yeah.
We saw some strange things on Appalachian Trail years ago, hiking from North Georgia all the way up into the Carolina area, and that was I was just a kid back then, but yeah, it's some interesting stuff on the trail.
You definitely, I've heard some characters too. You see especially some of the through hiking gang, they're going from one end to the other. Like, I've heard some interesting tales about some of the people you meet on that trail.
Yeah, my boss did that. My old boss, he actually hiked from Georgia all the way to Maine. Took him 7 months.
Whoa,
that's moving pretty good there. Man.
Yeah, that's cooking.
Yeah, so we had a good time. I took my fly rod, and there's probably going to be some people unsubscribe from this podcast when I tell them that I took a Tenkara rod. Uh, but it was the lightest thing I could fit in my pack, and it ended up being just a total waste of time. The water that was coming off of that mountain was so fast. I mean, it was like you put it in the water and then there it goes. I mean, you're 20 feet away within seconds. So
Yeah, the dead drift had a rooster tail.
it did. that hopper dropper looked like the dropper was skiing behind that hopper.
He's barefooting right across the hole.
But so I learned a lesson. You know, those banks are kind of high anyways. You kind of have to commit to it. I mean, you're not going to travel a whole lot of range in that. Just the terrain was just not great. There probably hundreds of people who could catch a trout out of those waters, but they were really fast and really high, and just not something I really wanted to commit to. So I was kind of just fishing from the access points.
Yeah, you wrestle with like, am I hiking or am I hiking to fish or am I fishing?
Yeah, and
like that.
How wet do I want to get? I don't want to get soaking wet because I might not dry out. And it turned off kind of chilly one of those nights. But so yeah, that fishing was not great, but we had a fantastic time hiking and just kind of doing the primitive stuff. So it was awesome.
That's cool.
Then, man, in June
we got together.
Man, Brad came up. We were able to go to we were invited to speak at a Southern Christian Writers Conference here right outside of Birmingham, and they asked us to do 2 workshops on podcasting. And Brad talking a little bit earlier about how this podcast has taken us places and meant more than just the podcast itself. We're so thankful that people are able to learn from what we've done and learn from our mistakes and learn from the things that we've actually figured out how to do somewhat well. We're not professionals by any stretch of the imagination, but we're having a good time, and we're just thankful that anything that we have learned, we'd like to pass it on. And that was an opportunity, and we had a lot of fun doing that. That was good to be up there together.
That's cool.
Yeah, that was good.
We piggybacked off of that trip with Wade. We're going to tell that story here in a few minutes. But just kind of rounding out the summer, we did the whole family lake thing in Guntersville in July, and did a lot of fishing, a lot of kayaking with my kids, and a lot of photography. Man, the Eagles were putting on a show. Actually got a few pictures of an eagle and an osprey fighting midair. It was way off, but those were too poor quality to really share. But man, what a fun thing to watch through from the seat of your kayak.
You caught some good fish too. I mean, there were some nice pictures there.
Well, one I forgot about one of the little stories. I don't know if we talked about this one yet, but one day my father-in-law was fishing, and he set the hook on one, and it didn't go anywhere. And his line broke, and we were fishing. We were fishing worms, purple worms, and you
can fish any color you want to, as long as it's purple.
Long as it's purple. So we were fishing. That was one day, and then we skipped a day, and then came back the next day, same spot. I hooked into something jigging, and I was like, "Well, that's weird. That's a line." So I pulled in the line, and at the other end of the line was a fish that was still hooked to the hook. And so I pull in the fish barehanded with just pulling in the line that my jig had gotten caught on. And it was my father-in-law's hook that was still in the mouth of that 3-pound bass. So it was, and that hook was brand new. It hadn't even rusted. It's just been a day and a half. But it was, what are the odds of that? How funny was that? But, even if it wasn't the same bass, which there weren't a whole lot of people on the lake those 2-3 days. Nonetheless, it was not my hook that was on the end of my line that I hooked that fish that I caught the line with. So, and then the last couple of weeks ago, I guess last week, I was able to go with a former guest and friend of the show, Hugh Cheek, and his son James. we went and floated the Cahaba, and man, what a fun trip that was to hang out with Hugh and his son.
I know. I was so jealous, man.
Man,
Me too.
that was another day that we did some catching. That was a really, really fun day. Hugh, in typical Hugh fashion, he always catches the biggest fish and the most fish. And so he was talking about how many fish I was catching. Well, it's because I was throwing about, I was casting about 100 times more than he was, because he was on the oars. And so anytime he put one in the water, he was pulling out a 14-inch spot, or 10-inch
Hybrid.
But man, it was a packed summer. It was fantastic. Well, Wade, we talked you, we strong-armed you into taking us fishing, and
that's not how I remember it. I think I threw that out there. That's all right.
Tell us about our trip, man.
Oh gosh. So we kind of, with the end of the last podcast, we talked about, hey, let's get you guys on a smallmouth, since you guys had never caught a smallmouth before. So really wanted Stephen to be able to come along on that. Other things came up and he just wasn't able to attend. But you guys, I guess, coming from the conference there in Birmingham, agreed to drive up early and meet me, somewhere unbeknownst to y'all. And I'm not really going to say exactly where, but we met up in a parking lot, and then we drove all over several different locations to try to find some breakfast. Which I
was really
breakfast.
It was harder to find breakfast than the smallies.
Yeah, I thought it was all a ruse to confuse us as to where we were actually going. So I was impressed that Bryan could even drive with that blindfold on. So
that's great. That's great. After going over the hill and through the woods and up to Grandma's house
in Tennessee.
It's dumped a few guys out in the middle of a field. And what'd you think about that place?
I would have never known it existed had you not taken us there.
Isn't that something?
I mean, and you talk about once you get down in there and your mind is focused on that water in front of you.
Man, faded away.
Close your eyes and you're anywhere in the world. I mean, it is gorgeous water that you've got access to.
It's an incredible place, and it's kind of silly because I've seen the changes of that creek over the last, since the mid 90s, and just how much it's changed. But for such a small stream, it's just got some really quality fish in it. We've had a few issues in the past with some pollution and things of that nature, some fish kills and low oxygen, those kind of things. It's been monitored for a while, but it's just incredible, the number and the quality of the fish that place produces. And so it's great to be able to go in and kind of know, once it's like anything. If you had a lake or a pond, you talk about creel and knowing the bottom of the lake, and there's a stump over there's a hole over there, old farm pond over there, or foundation, whatever it may be. And once you fish something long enough, you learn the holes, the pockets, the ruts. And unless you have a major torrential flood, it doesn't change a whole lot. But we've seen this creek change a few times over the course of the last 10, 15 years, where gravel's filled in a few holes or stream beds changed a little bit. But for the most part, those fish come back season after season, and it's just amazing to see. It's such a cool little place, because like you said, you get off in there and you don't really realize, what you have there is just so unique compared to every other stream around it. There's no two that I know of around that can even compare to the structure that's in that creek, with the rocks and the ledges and
that's what I was going to point out, Wade, is the clarity of the water was great that day. And man, there were just all these little channels and shelves, in those massive rocks, this huge rock. And then you get into the gravel beds, and man, there was just beautiful the way it was laid out. I mean, when you walk down in there, it was like you walked through some kind of little curtain into another little world. And everything was almost like muffled around you. You
Mm-hmm.
didn't hear a whole lot. It was just like, man, you just walked into a different little universe for a little bit. And man, it was just so peaceful and beautiful down in there. And yeah, looking some of the little fish that I guess those are sunfish. There's all kinds of different species of panfish, and some of them, Ryan, I think you took a picture of one. I mean, it looked tropical and it had those,
Yeah.
those, I guess they're like maybe a long ear, but has a lot those little blue specks on it. And man, incredible.
Yeah. Pumpkin seeds, red breast, a lot of little greenies, and all standard bluegills. There's a bunch of darters and red horse, and a few catfish, but there's also a few endangered species in there as well that kind of really have helped keep the creek going. And but it's amazing what all's there: snakes, turtles, frogs. It's just
Deer.
incredible. And yeah, and it's it's the further you walk. I mean, gosh, there's some days where I cover a lot of water when I fish. That's one thing that people kind of go, oh, you really didn't take his time to fish that hole. Well, if you know what's there and they're not feeding the way you want them to, just keep moving. Come back to those spots. And that's one thing that I do a lot is I cover a ton of water. And some days I might walk 7 miles just to access different parts. But what's so cool is that creek, that watershed changes so much from different areas to like what you were talking about, the big table type rocks where there's ledges and shelter underneath them, to real thin shoals and gravel and weed beds, and other areas where it's just clay banks with weeds growing up, and it's a narrow path, but it's deep. And it changes from one end to the other. It's pretty incredible.
Yeah, very unique.
Some of some of the size, when you stand up on some of those rocks and you can kind of get a little bit of elevation around it, seeing some of the size of the fish that are in that little stream. I mean,
yeah,
it's incredible the quality of fish that are hanging out in that thing. Man, do they stay there? Educate me a little bit on smallmouth. Do they go up and down the stream? Do they stay in one place?
They'll definitely travel, and you can kind of time it by the seasons, of how they actually come into certain areas based on water temperature and water height. We get a lot of rain early in the season, so the water's up higher. Spring thaws, things like that. The winter thaw coming into spring, the water will be a little bit higher, flowing a little bit faster. But those fish consistently come in and out. They'll travel to deeper locations in the winter to, either hold up, or some, they say some will travel as far as 100 miles. So it's hard for me to believe that, but I'm sure it happens, because once the farmers really, start using up a lot of water in a lot of areas for irrigation or things like that, it really draws those creek levels down all over unless they're spring fed. And so a lot of times those fish will move out of shallow water and into deeper water. But what's incredible to me is, the areas that are tree covered, even though there's a deeper channel in the middle of the creeks at times, sometimes those fish will get right on the edges of the banks and cruise the edge to stay away from, avoid anything that's overhead, because birds are, going to be their number one, I guess, prey, if you will, that prey on them. And so any big birds or things like that come across, those fish just scatter. And it's incredible to watch them move.
We saw osprey. I think that when we were coming out of the water, we could see osprey. What other
herons?
Herons up there.
A few egrets. Every once in a while, you'll see those white. I guess it's an egret. But there are some other hawks, like red-tailed hawks, and every once in a blue moon, you'll see some eagles that'll migrate from the lakes like Guntersville, and they're headed north into Reelfoot up in out above Memphis, kind of going north. So every once in a blue moon, you'll see some eagles that'll come through, but rare. I've not ever seen one actually in the creek. So, but yeah, there's some of those fish though. I mean, it takes a long time for a smallmouth to get that size. And when you start talking about an 18 to a 20-inch fish, and then even record fish that are 22 to 24, which are almost unheard of, which, I'm seeing less and less of that. But, years past, there were some definitely 21, 22-inch fish in that creek that, would just absolutely take you for a ride. And they're built for speed, man. They've got tails on them that, some of them are 9 to 10 inches in width across the back. And it's like hooking up to a 10-horse motor, I mean, those things just pull like you would not believe. And well, I mean, you guys experienced that. So it takes a long time for those fish to grow. They've got to have the right habitat, got to have the right food sources. They got to have less pressure, because the more pressure they get stunted. So to have a system like that has 18, 19, 20-inch fish in it is incredible. Because some of those fish are old fish, old fish.
And we're not talking a wide creek at all. I mean, this is narrow. This is skinny water. And it's just it's a phenomenal thing. And we really hope that it stays the pressure off of it and stays protected. It
was definitely special.
Yeah. We saw Brandon also. He stopped by and said hello to us. And
what a talented fly tire.
Fly tire. Both, we can fly test.
He gave us a couple of bugs, and my goodness, man, what a talented guy. And we're over there trying, catching a couple of fish, catch a couple of sunfish, catching brim on bugs that Wade was confident I wouldn't catch a brim on. They were brim proof, and I'd pull out a brim on them.
Hey, but you managed to catch a smallmouth.
Hey, I did catch a smallmouth. I caught it early.
Both did.
I caught one early too. And then, we saw Brandon later. It's like, how many did you catch? Oh, I don't know, 11, 12.
A couple 20. Yeah.
Tore him up. So, but Brad, you had quite an experience, didn't you?
Oh, we did. It was such a good trip. And man, thank you, Wade, for taking us, man. It was we're gushing over this, stream, as we should, because it was really, really a special place to go. And yeah, my first time, I didn't even know, I've only seen pictures of smallmouth and never caught a smallmouth, and never even chased them before. So this was first time to go chase smallmouth bass. And Bryan, you caught one early. And it was really cool to see them. And
that quote from A River Runs Through It always pops into my mind. It says, I caught a fish, and then I sat on a bank and watched a fisherman. As I was watching Brad cast. Man, it's a thing of beauty. If you're listening and you haven't ever seen it, maybe you guys can come with us sometime. Brad is an excellent caster, and but that's kind of what I did. I just sat there sometimes and just watched.
Well, I'm not a great catcher sometimes, so which is the moral of this story. Oh man, I'm still a little bummed out, but we were having a blast and fishing, and we caught a few and caught some panfish, and then I was fishing my favorite little setup is a moonshine rods drifter rod with a little Ross reel on it. I love it, a little 4-weight. And Wade was standing right there close to me, and he was like, man, he was telling me where to cast. And you were talking earlier about knowing the holes and the runs, and we were on one that you were like, man, I know there's one in here. And man, I was throwing this one of your new is a brown one bug,
brown,
little orange on there. And man, it was a little slurp.
It was annihilated.
It was just destroyed, man. And man, my rod transformed into a shepherd's hook, and man, it was on, and Wade was getting real excited, which I don't know any better, so I'm getting real excited because Wade's getting excited, and he's getting down there, and he gets down there with a net, the line breaks off, and we knew it was a big fish, and we saw it come up. It jumped a little bit, and it felt like a huge fish. And man, I was just dejected, you know. And then Wade says, he's like, man, I think that might have been like a 20-inch fish. And I was like,
It was.
oh,
It was easy. Easy 20-inch fish.
So I was like, well, I guess maybe it's probably not good that I catch a 20-inch smallmouth on my very first smallmouth trip.
That's
So
what we call.
That's what I told myself anyway.
That's what we call runt.
Not ruined. Not ruined. No. It's much worse to be ruined.
I learned a little bit of a lesson there too, because I just kept saying, man, that was a big fish. And Brad's like, okay, you can stop with that. Because I was just like bummed. Man, it was, you see so many of them fight in that creek. And when you see the stroke of a tail and the swirl that comes off of a fish like that, I knew within, first minute of it fighting that it was a big fish.
Yeah.
And I was pretty excited because I thought, oh gosh, he's got a tank. And I
guess it rubbed on that little shelf right there and broke because it broke the line. It didn't. It didn't come unhooked because the fly was gone.
There's some metal in that creek from years ago, some damage that came through, and those fish, they know every little nook and cranny, and if they can find something to rub against, they're gonna do it. And
he did, man. It broke off the leader there, and the old one bug was gone, and we were dejected. We re-rigged, and well, I guess we'll move up a little above this hole, and so me and Wade made our way up, and we're fishing above this little hole. And man, if I'm lying, I'm dying. And Wade is my witness. That bass jumped out of that water. Completely full-bodied out of the water.
Like a whale, man. It came out just sploosh.
Yeah. It did a little wiggle. It did a little S wiggle, and his body had like 3 curves in it.
Yeah.
It was unbelievable. And I could see that fly in his mouth. And he threw the fly out as if to say, hey, you left something.
Here's your bug back.
Here's your bug.
And so we were able to get that thing back. So if you're watching on YouTube, we got the one bug back.
Yeah.
Because what does it do? The foam floats. It floated right up the top, and Wade reached out there and was able to get it. It was hilarious. But when that thing hit the water, it was like somebody threw a Lodge cast iron skillet back into the water. Like a bloosh.
Insult to injury.
It was brutal. So, man, what an experience. I'll never, ever forget that the rest of my life, to see that thing jump out and throw that, like, just straight up cheek. I mean, it was just the cheekiest thing that a fish can do. It's like, hey, you broke this off and left it, pal.
Better luck next time, buddy.
Better luck next time, buddy. So, yeah. What an experience. I'll never forget it. So,
oh man,
that's awesome.
So that was what do you keep calling it? A long release. It was a long release.
Yeah, long distance release, LDR.
We're all about keeping the fish wet here at the Storied Outdoors.
Yeah, conservation.
It's all about conservation.
Allowing somebody else to catch it in the future.
So, I got to see him a couple of times.
It's like the one that gets away is always like that one good shot. If you're a golfer. That your best shot's going to be on the 18th hole, get you coming back the next time, and so that'll get you coming back the next time. But you ended up landing one.
It wasn't a 20-inch fish, but it was still got to see the brown fish, and it was really cool to see them, and even the little one fight. You're right, man. They fight different than a regular, Alabama largemouth bass. They just fight different than the bass I'm accustomed to, and such a treat, man. Oh, it was awesome.
Yeah. That creek, you have to have, the ability to make a good long cast. A lot of times in different seasons, you can see those fish pushing bait or cruising across the creek, making wakes. And, if you can see them feeding like that and get into a position where, one, the sun's not at your back shining down on the creek.
Mm-hmm.
2, you can actually make a decent cast on your first cast for presentation to get the fly. above them or near them so that they notice it. And I mean, guys, I've had fish come 20 feet away for a bug in the past that just, you see this V coming straight at the fly and it just disappears. And you're like, what do I do now? And then all of a sudden it's just, sometimes it's just this most subtle little sip, just sucking the bug in. Other times it's just like somebody flushed a commode on it. And, it's such an incredible thing to watch. And everybody that catches smallmouth, they understand, it's just, there's something about those fish. And I was listening to a thing on Instagram earlier where Sage was talking about pound for pound. It's one of the toughest fighting fish there is. And I think, it's exactly right. It's just incredible.
Yeah, I would definitely,
such a cool
definitely
thing.
agree with that. I certainly saw, I've heard about, why, people love and they're all about it and that they exclusively fish for smallmouth, but I get it, man. It was a blast.
I'd like to do more of it.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, that was a fun fish to catch. You think about the aggressiveness of a red eye and the size of a largemouth, kind of a combination of that. That's a lot of fun when you're talking those two types of fish there. So smallmouth are definitely on the top of my list of fun fish to go for.
One of my dear friends, Chris Story, years ago when he moved to Huntsville, my dad and I took him out on Wilson Lake, and there was a mayfly hatch going on, and we were throwing one bugs, of course, at the seawalls and underneath the trees. We'd pull up to a tree and use a PVC pole and just kind of beat the tree, and bugs would fly off and hit the water, and brim would start coming up everywhere. And then you just see these shadows cruise in under the trees or on the seawalls. And there were so many times that day where we had triples in the boat, and I bet we probably caught 100 fish a piece. And he just, I've got an old picture of him from 1996 where he's ear to ear, just smiling, holding this smallmouth caught on a 3-weight St. Croix rod, and just, nice. Just absolutely had a blast, and it spoiled him. But you can go over there on Wilson and work your way around the houses and the seawalls and the boat docks and just have a field day with a popping bug. It's just an incredible experience. But awesome. Any of the rivers really on, I say rivers, the lakes like Wheeler, the lower end of Wheeler, Wilson, Pickwick are phenomenal. There's people that come from all over the world to fish below Wilson Dam for just huge smallmouth that sit down there and just feed on shad. And there's some guides, Tony Cox in Florence is a great guide, and there's several others that I've known over the years that actually fish over there specifically for that with terminal tackle and fly. And man, I tell you, I've seen some monster fish come out of there. Back in '88, best friend in the boat with him and another guy named George, and he had a back-to-back. He had a little over 7 pound, a 9 pound, and then George hooked into one on a sassy shad that fought for 20-25 minutes. Finally get it up next to the boat, and I kid you not, if it wasn't a double-digit fish, I've seen largemouth that weren't as big as this smallmouth, and it was a tank. Wow. And he, we were in the current. The boat was drifting towards one of the islands. We were trying to get out, move things around, shift the boat, trying to get the fish in the net, and that thing broke. And I thought George was going to have a heart attack.
I know,
but it's just, and I've had a couple of 8-pound fish over there that, they come out and they're just footballs. They're just, they're tanks. And
an 8-pound smallmouth, I would imagine fights like a 15-pound largemouth.
It's
just,
they just, and amazing. In that current below the dam, they just pull and pull. Of course, we were fishing back with dredging lines in, trying to keep it out of the rocks, and it's a whole different experience. It's pretty incredible, but you never know what you're going to catch over there. You can catch drum and stripe and paddlefish and all carp and buffalo and everything else. So
Is that still
Interesting.
part of the Tennessee River system?
It is.
Man,
It sure is.
that river is such a healthy river. I mean, goodness gracious.
Well, and all the rivers that feed into it, the elk for years,
Mhm.
elk is known now as a trout fishery at Tim's Ford, but I talked to farmers that they'd lived there all their lives and grew up as kids before the dam was built, and used to fish that river back when it was a smallmouth stream, and said it was the best smallmouth
Wow.
stream in the nation, back
Wow.
before the John Day River and the New River, and all those up in East Tennessee and Virginia.
Brian, is that the same elk that we fished on?
Yeah,
That's
that's
what he's talking about?
yeah,
Wow.
right down from Tim's Ford Dam. And
Yep.
that first part is really good for the trout. And then we
So much
tried
fun.
this, we tried the second part for some smallmouth, but we didn't have any success at one point. But man, that's great to know about. I actually didn't know that the elk flowed into the Tennessee.
Yep, sure does. It actually
Pretty cool.
flows in down near, I guess, west of Athens and east of Florence. You actually cross over it. I was out there fishing years ago and went out and caught a bunch of stripe along the riverbanks at an old granary that they built in the 80s out there, and then was headed out that direction, and there were fire trucks and cars blocking the entire interstate, and that granary exploded years ago, and it blew the top completely off this dome. And there's videos online where you can go and actually look at the dome. People go inside it and stuff. It's huge, just a massive place. But I used to have barges that were tied up out there, and we'd go and fish around those barges all the time for smallmouth and stripe.
Cool.
And pretty neat place. But yeah, it's a amazing river as far as sandbars and logs and lots of smallmouth. Pretty cool place.
That makes more sense now. I was just coming back from Nashville, and I think that the elk goes right under 65 or it's right close to that.
The duck and the elk both do.
I didn't even put it together that was the same one over in, I guess, Winchester.
Interesting.
Yeah. And Richland Creek as well runs right underneath the interstate, just past the rest stop there.
Yeah.
How about that? I loved our time on the elk up there with Ben.
Yeah, I'd like to go back. I'd like to do that again. Well, Brad,
dude,
you had a couple more trips, didn't you?
We did. We had a big family trip. I teased it a little bit as we ended the season last season, and we bit the bullet and road tripped to Rocky Mountain National Park.
Awesome.
It was quite a haul.
You had a lens that you took with you, a camera lens.
I did. Yeah, I rented a lens.
Goodness.
A buddy of mine works for lensrentals.com, and I got to asking him some questions. And I'm like, dude, I'm going to do it. So I rented a nice big lens. I knew I was going to see some big wildlife. So we saw elk and lots and lots of elk in Rocky Mountain National, lots of other small wildlife. My kid's favorite was the marmots, if you've ever seen the marmots, which is what the apparel company that is named after, but they're basically like a really big ground squirrel, beaver looking kind of a creature. They look very happy and slightly sassy when they run, and my kids loved watching them. And man, they were like, as we were driving out, they said, "Is it going to be like the Smokies?" I'm like, "Yeah, the Smokies they're cool, but they're not the Rockies. The Rockies are these are for real." Okay?
You'll notice the difference.
Yeah. We drove out through Texas and up through like New Mexico, and then straight up north through Colorado Springs. I kind of wish we had made our approach the other direction, because we returned through like Colorado, Kansas, and Arkansas. But man, like eastern Colorado and Kansas are both extremely flat. I mean, painfully flat. And then the Rockies just abruptly shoot up.
Mm-hmm.
And man, it was, as we were leaving, I was like, man, it got flat quick. And you just look in your rearview mirror and it's just like a 14,000 foot wall that are the Rockies. And I was just imagining those people that that must have made their approach that direction in wagons, and what do we do now? When they approached the
Yeah.
Rockies, it was just so dramatic. But man, we had a great time. Kids did awesome. I was a little concerned. It's like 2 10-hour, 10+ hour days of driving. They're gonna hate my guts, right? Like, what have you made us do? But man, they seemed to really enjoy the road trip. I mean, we on 9 states. We only repeated Mississippi, so 9 states and the Rockies, all kinds of amazing wildlife. Um, I think my favorite little story within that trip was we were on this road called Trail Ridge Road, which drives up through the national park onto the ridge, and it's the highest um, continuously paved road like in the country. The majority of this road's up over 10,000 feet above sea level,
Hmm.
and through the ridge there. And we pull off at one of these little pull offs where there's a beautiful like view, viewing area, and there's a big rock outcropping where you can walk out, and they have little signs and some couple of historical facts, and there's lots of little marmots around, so they're really close, and everybody's watching the marmots run around. And so we're there taking in the view, and my son comes running up and says, "My buddy Elijah's here." I was like, "No, no, he's not. No, no, he's not." And I turn around, and there's Elijah and his dad. And I'll go,
Small
"What?
world.
What in the world?" I mean, we're not talking about a kid that goes to his school. We're talking about a kid from his class at Satsuma Elementary School in Mobile, Alabama, right? Like this, a tiny town outside of Mobile, Alabama. Not just from his school, but his class,
Oh,
That's awesome.
and not just a kid from his class, but his pal he's buddies with was in the Rockies at the same time on the same little road, 12,000 feet above sea level.
Wow.
It was
That's
pretty. I was like,
insane.
you boys are gonna have a good story to tell when you get back to school.
Yeah.
But we got to do a little fishing while we were there, and we went out with a guide, which was a lot of fun. He was great helping me with Liam, in waters that I didn't know, but man, he put us on some fish, and Liam caught his first trout. First trout was a brown trout,
Nice.
and
Man, that's
he
nice.
caught several nice little fish, and just had a big time. And then we moved to another location. He's 8, so he's a little bored, slightly bored, because it was arduous. You're picking up and you're letting it drift. You're picking up and you're letting it drift. So his attention span was getting challenged. So he moved over to being the net man, and so he was there with the net, and he would net the fish that I would catch. And so we had an absolute blast at the end of the day, and a great experience. Um, I learned, you were talking about earlier, Brian, if you want to learn how to fly fish, go out with a guide.
Hmm.
I'm a moderately competent fly fisherman overall. Like, I know how to cast. I can make the cast look pretty. I've learned a lot. Each time I go, I learn something new, or I learn what not to do. I don't know if y'all are like me. I learned a lot of things about, like, I don't want to do that again. But every time I go out with a guide, I learn something good that's helpful.
Hmm.
It's always worth it. I've never gone, man, you know, they didn't teach me anything. I always learned something. It may not be like always good, because we've had some bad experience. We've had one bad experience with a guide, but for the most part, like, and I've been on a fair amount of trips. I've always picked up little tricks, here and there
Yeah.
from guides.
Whether it's a knot, a lure setup,
Yep.
something. I mean, it's always,
Yeah.
if you're paying attention, these
That's good.
guys want to give you their knowledge.
Yeah, and they know they've done it a lot, and so you're learning different ways to do your leader. I mean, and when we were up there with you, Wade, I mean, the way you set up and tied up Brian's leader and got it set up, I was like, I never considered, doing this or that way. So everybody's got their own little way of doing it. And go, oh, I like that. I may try that again. So this guy, we had done some conventional, and then he asked me, he's like, man, would you want to learn how to Euro nymph? I was like, I've never done it. I read about it all the time. And I see a lot of people. There's a little polarizing for some people too. They're like, Some people don't like it, but I was like, it's not necessarily my thing, but I learned how to do it, and
Mhm.
it was pretty fun. And he taught me how to do it, and it was enjoyable. And I learned, some knot setups, and it was a great experience. And we caught a bunch of fish, and caught them in the shadow of the Rockies. And it was our last day up there. It had rained a bunch, and I was really bummed out, Brian. I mean, we've had
Mhm.
war up with rain in the past trying to do these trips, and it's like, can we just plan a trip and it not rain, for crying out loud? Why does it have to always rain? I mean, I think we get sucked into, and I'll get on my soapbox. We get sucked into thinking we watch people's social media, and we're like,
Yeah.
they're always going on these amazing trips,
Yeah.
and every time I plan a trip, it rains,
Yeah.
It's like, it's always bad, but everybody else those are their one good trips,
Mhm.
and everything went awesome. But it rained, and like the river was booking pretty good. I had fished earlier that day by myself, and it was moving so fast. I mean, I couldn't even get a drift like you were talking. I actually ended up stepping over into there's a lake in Estes Park, and I ended up catching I saw trout rising on some little white, a little white, little small, flies. And man, I had a little parachute Adams. I was like, well, might as well try this. And sure enough, man, I caught a nice lake trout on a
Oh,
little
cool.
small white, white parachute Adams. So that was fun. And then I went and met the guide. I was like, what
Hmm.
we gonna do, man? Because that river's cooking.
Was
And
that the same
man,
time frame as whenever Yellowstone? Uh,
yes,
that
yes,
was those rains that did Yellowstone so bad.
yeah, yeah. Well, the snow was melting. Had a couple hot days,
Yeah.
and snow melt was really significant, and so it was cooking, and it rained. But man, sure enough, we get going, and it's okay. We get on some fish, and then we move to that other spot, and like the sun pops out, and it's just beautiful. The
Mm.
Huh.
sky is beautiful. The sunset is beautiful, and yeah, it was a great trip. The kids saw some magnificent things, and they saw snow in June, which was kind of strange.
Mm.
Um, but yeah, right, Rocky Mountain National is certainly worth the visit. Um,
Absolutely.
there were great things to do for our family. We did some great hiking. We saw some alpine lakes. There's hiking for everybody there. There's a couple of different places where there's good hiking for people that even are in wheelchair access. There's one beautiful lake, Bear Lake, is this nice path around it that's wheelchair accessible, and it's absolutely gorgeous. And every time the wind would blow, it was like crisp, cleanest air you've ever smelled
Mm.
would hit you in the face, mixed in with a little bit of Christmas tree aroma,
Oh,
because
that's
man, it was
amazing.
unbelievable. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna move here.
As you're watching
Yeah.
the snowfall, I
It was
mean,
it was amazing.
A lot of
you
people don't like the term religious experience, but man, there's just something majestic
Oh, yeah.
about that whole area that
mm,
it just puts you in awe.
Mm.
And to go out there and look at God's creation and just see, how things were formed and just the beauty of it, the trees, the plants, the colors, it's just incredible.
Yeah,
Such
we
a
got
cool
to
place.
our last evening. The light was fading. My pictures weren't great, but the light was really low. But we did see a cow moose,
mm,
and her
mm.
calf, and that was pretty cool to see because those are enormous.
It's hard for me to picture how big a moose is. Like,
Oh man,
I mean, I see them in pictures, I see videos, I see them
think
hanging
of
on the walls
like
of the
a
lodge.
Ford Explorer with legs.
That's kind of what I'm picturing. This
Exactly.
bigger. I mean, good night.
Oh my goodness!
And the
Oh, it
cows
was a
are
great.
just as they're not as big as the bulls, but I mean they're
They're
big.
big. They're big.
Mm,
Yeah, and nothing to be trifled with when they got that little with
don't
them
mess
too.
with them. Those are not pets.
So yeah, it was a great trip.
Any
Um,
bears?
no bears.
No bears?
The one thing I did, I enjoyed talking to all of the park rangers. They were awesome. You could tell they loved their job, and they would
Mm-hmm.
answer questions. And so I did ask that, and he was like, "We do have bears. There are certain times of year that you might see them, but it's such a big area and there's so few of them that you'd be pretty lucky to see a bear in the park. But and then I got part of my job in my church is I lead I'm over missions for our church, and so my other adventure this year, which is always an adventure, was an international trip down to Mazatepe, Nicaragua, and it was I did a couple. If you follow our Instagram, you saw a couple of reels on some of the farms that we work on there, and man, it was a great trip. It was so good to see the people there, and I'm definitely as we look to this season, as we're kicking off this season with this episode, that's certainly there's a couple of things that I've certainly reflected on after that trip, and still sort of processing as you do when you go to Nicaragua is second to only to Haiti in poverty level. So they were the second poorest country in this part of the world, for various reasons. But they're amazing people and hard workers, and man, just they love Jesus, and just man, I always come away having learned something or been challenged deeply by them. And so, yeah, still continuing to reflect on that experience, but it did give me an increasing appreciation and admiration for the man who created air conditioning. Because we were there in the summer, and it was just as hot. It's just as hot as it is in Mobile, Alabama. There's just no relief. So, but it was hot. So you just get used to being sweaty. But
Wow.
Yeah, it was a good summer, and
2 great trips, man. I cannot wait to hear about those.
Big trips. And then if you follow my personal Instagram in the spring, we're talking about spring. You were talking about that earlier with your bike trip. Second spring in a row at our house or in our little neighborhood, we had a couple of barred owls nest right in our neighborhood, and we got to see they had owlets. They had 3 owlets, and we got to watch them grow up, basically. So I photographed a ton of owls. I know, sorry, Courtney Munson. Courtney Munson was on our was one of our early guests, and she is not a fan of owls.
I love them.
I apologize, Courtney, but I love them. They haven't attacked me, so but it's incredible to see them and our kids to go, let's go check on the owls. And we'd run down there and see, wherever the owlets were sitting and trying to find them. It's like a little treasure hunt. And then you find them, and they're like little cotton balls. Yeah.
They were so fluffy, man. Those pictures.
My gosh, man.
They look like somebody got into a pillow and just fluffed it up.
They were. And, but man, it was cool to see. We got to meet Liam and me one afternoon. We went out and we saw them. I guess it was like the last day that we saw them, but we saw the mom I guess it was a mom, one of the parents. I think it was a mom, because usually the females are bigger than the males, and they stay around a little bit longer than the males do, I think. Although I did see both adults with the babies the whole time, a couple of times together. So it's pretty neat to see them all together, all in the same little vicinity, kind of sticking together. Couple of fun facts about barred owls. They are monogamous. Like, they mate with the same pair, mate for life, and they will return apparently to this area or the same tree for as long as 12 to 15 years.
Oh man.
And so feasibly next spring they'll be back. So
I can't wait to see that. Yeah.
Yeah, because I know where the tree is, and I know I know when they'll be here. So pretty cool to see that in nature, and to watch God's creation at work, and to see those things grow, and see those parents urging those babies to fly, and see them take flight. Man, it was cool. It's such a treat. I just told my kids, I was like, man, I've been in and out of the woods all my life, and I've never been able to watch this go down. I was like, you don't understand how special, this opportunity is to see this kind of nature at work, not in a zoo or on TV.
Right? Yeah. I mean, this is in the wild.
Yeah. And old Satsuma down there in the neighborhood.
That's so cool.
But yeah, so lots of things, there's lots of things that I'm thinking about from the summer as I've been writing and preparing for my essays for this next season. Man, I'm so excited. Can't
Guys,
believe some of these guests, and
we say it every season. It's like
I can't believe it.
we're excited. We're just as excited about this season as the previous season. And every season we're looking forward to with just anticipation. And, some of the people that we've got on this year for this season, for this upcoming season, these are some bucket list names.
Yeah.
At the onset, I guess about 2 years ago, Brad and I sat down and said, who would we like to get on it? There's some of them are coming on this season right now. I mean, on this upcoming season.
I mean, we got Wade.
Wade, Sam One Bug Blevins
he's up there.
this is his second time.
He's just a regular. I mean, look at him. He's even got a shirt on. If you're watching on YouTube,
he's got the one and only fishing Storied Outdoors.
Bryan,
shirt.
we don't even have
I don't even have one of those. But no,
Yeah,
I mean, we've got some authors. We got one author in particular. Brad and I lovingly say this is the fastest 50 minutes in podcast you'll ever hear.
Yeah, man.
This guy hit the ground running, and Brad and I barely talked.
I'll tell you what, he was excited about the topic. He was excited to join us, which was really encouraging because
it made me excited about the topic too.
I mean, he's a big deal. He really is. And man, he didn't bat an eye to join us, and he's written some cool books and had some really cool things to say. So I'm really excited, but he did speak pretty quickly. He was, he was.
I loved his energy, man. It made for a fun podcast.
I wish I could siphon some of that off, honestly.
I know. We're recording this one at 10:00 p.m. I need some of what he's having right now.
Man, no doubt. A couple of nonprofits.
Oh man, we're so excited to share these stories. These guys, what they're doing with children and fly fishing, and oh my goodness, man, they're making a difference.
Yeah,
they're making a difference.
I think there was a caver. That was the one that was like the wild card for me. I was like, a caver. Never thought we would talk to a caver.
My dad was a spelunker.
Was he?
Yeah. John knows that the National Speleological Society, for years, the headquarters was in Huntsville, Alabama. There's more caves per capita in North Alabama than anywhere else in the nation.
Are you serious?
I'm dead serious.
You serious, Clark?
The downtown Huntsville, the reason that we don't have major skyscrapers in downtown Huntsville is because it's built on a cave.
Oh, it wouldn't support it, I guess.
That's correct. They've got huge steel structures down inside it. Big Spring Park, the huge spring that comes out from underneath the bank there, it's all part of a cave system right there on downtown.
Oh, man,
courthouse sits on top of a cave.
You're gonna be able to relate to some of the stories that this guest tells.
Really cool.
Cool.
It's pretty neat. That was certainly a very educational. I learned a lot in that conversation. So I can't wait to share that. And that's just been each season remains like we have our fly fishing guys, and we've got a whopper of a fly fishing guest on this coming up season that was honestly quite a surprise. It was just one of those shots in the dark. I sent him a message on social media, and I was like, I'm going to ask. All he say is no. And he's like, sure, I'd love to join you. I was like, oh. So can't wait for that. That's a big one. So man, please, you just be looking forward to that. Some musicians, some songwriters.
This is our first musician, isn't it, Brad? I mean,
no, AP Andrew Peterson.
Yes, yeah,
singer songwriter.
Yeah,
and this guy's solely, he's great, man. He was a good guy.
This was a fun. That was a fun episode. I don't know. I'm not gonna tip my hand, but you'll recognize a lot of the music.
Oh yeah.
If you know certain circles that if you're in those certain circles, then man, you're gonna think this is a really neat conversation because what he's doing now being so different than what he had done for decades, you know, and helping pastors and those kind of suffering burnout and those types of people and getting the outdoors to kind of help that healing process that what God is doing through him. So that's a lot of fun. That was a great conversation.
Yeah.
And Brad, we've
coffee
got
roasters. Eclectic season, man.
You know, and we've tried this every time. I think you were about to make this point just a second ago. We've got the fly fishing, we've got the outdoorsy stuff, and we try to keep it varied enough that we're not just in one lane. That may cost us some listeners. That may cost us some people who really want to dive into that one groove of fly fishing. But honestly, I love the diversity of voices that we're trying to find here.
We probably lost a bunch of listeners. I mean, you went 10 cars.
Well, if you're still listening, then you know we appreciate you hanging around after we talked about 10 car.
Euro-nymphing over there. I mean,
Euro-nymphing and 10 car. Where are these guys headed?
Yeah, I tried Euro-nymphing. I broke my run first day I had it. Oh gosh.
Oh man, but super eclectic. A lot of great voices, a lot of great wisdom.
Yeah,
I feel like
excited, guys.
So man,
excited for you.
We got an anthropologist talking about the health benefits of campfires.
How much have we talked about that on this podcast about why is sitting around a fire so good? Everybody says that. Like, I don't know why. And so I'm like, I'm going to find out why. So I got on, you know, what do? You Google it, right?
Google
it online, which is now like a verb. So I Googled it. I got online and researched. It says, surely someone has done this research. We can't be the only ones that have thought about this because it really is I cannot wait for the weather to turn cool. I cannot wait to build a fire in the fire pit and sit around with some friends. It is one of my favorite things to do in the world. Genuinely, some of the sweetest times and conversations, incredibly relaxing. So I get online and I research, ask the question why, you know, basically why is looking at, you know, why is staring at a fire good for you? Has anyone ever researched that or something like that? And creepily, Google does, kind of answer that for you as you're typing. And I'm like, oh, I didn't know I was going to do that. But anyway, and I find an article in a UK newspaper that's like staring at a fire lowers your blood pressure. I was like, oh yeah,
I think we're on to something.
Here's my guy. And so found this guy doing research, found out where he taught, and I reached out to him, and he's an anthropologist, and they did research on campfires and the benefits of campfires and have bona fide research to prove it. And it was a cool conversation, man.
It was so cool.
The
I need some doses of that.
I need some campfires.
I was like, does this mean I can get a prescription from my doctor?
Wow.
That's what we need. I need the prescription. And you know, and Wade, you got a fireplace right there in your fly tying room, man.
Yeah,
I got a fever, and the only thing that's gonna remedy it.
But there's nothing quite like you're saying about, you know, sitting around a campfire out in the woods or near a stream or whatever. Yeah. I mean, there's something about that. Man. You know, and next morning, you know, a cup of Joe on a campfire stove and some bacon in a skillet with some eggs and hash browns. Listen, guys, I mean, that's soul healing right there. I'm telling you.
We're about to have church.
Amen.
Hey, you know what?
That man said coffee, bacon, and a campfire next to a river. Like these are a few of my favorite things.
Wade has never experienced this, but that's really good after a long day of not catching fish.
That's correct.
I have experienced that. Let me just be the first to say. Yeah, I got some stories some days I need to share with y'all about Arkansas and camping. Camping in general for me in the past has always been a rain experience. You were talking about rain earlier. I've for years, I never went camping when it didn't rain. So we invested in really good tents and rain flies. But I have some really cool stories about stuff like that happened between, some major storms when it wasn't expected. It's supposed to be 70 degrees and clear.
70 and sunny.
Yeah. I think looking back, and I may write about this. I probably do need to write about this. I took a few guys from my church fly fishing this past spring in March, and we went up to Pigeon Forge, and we're gonna fish down in North Carolina, and
Blizzard of March.
Straight up,
oh my
dude.
gosh.
Straight up. So Friday night we're sitting around the fire, got shorts on, short sleeve shirts, 60 degrees. We had clothes for the most part. We were prepared because the weather said it was going to happen. It was just hard to believe, this winter storm is coming through. And I was like, it is so nice outside right now. It is wonderful. We woke up 5 o'clock the next morning. It's 16 degrees and there's 4 inches of snow on the ground.
Oh my goodness.
It was so cold that the eyelets on my fly rod were freezing up, and my reel was freezing up when we were trying to fish. I would just have to dip my rod down into the river and thaw it out. But ended up catching some fish though. It was it was cold as I have genuinely. It was cold as I've ever been while fishing. I've never been so cold, and I think I was the last one in the water. Fishing. A lot of the guys are like, all right, good. I'm
tapping out.
Yeah, good. And so I caught some fish. So that was fun up there. But Smoky Mountains in the snow was quite spectacular. It is beautiful.
Well, we got a trip to the Smokies coming up. We got 2 trips that Brad and I are going to do together this fall. Mm-hmm. We will be doing recaps of both of them. The first one is Hutch Moot, with a little bit of a fishing trip on the rear end of that one. Moot. Yeah, Hutch Moot is, we've talked about this before, but it is the rabbit room, which Andrew Peterson and his brother, what's his brother's name? Brad.
Dude,
I'm drawing a blank, man. It's too late. Pete Peterson, that's right. So those 2 guys, Andrew and Pete, they put together this incredible creatives collective, basically, and they do an annual conference. Well, the last time Brad and I went to this conference together, it was the birth of the idea of wanting to do something creative. It wasn't the birth of the podcast because we hadn't gone fishing in North Georgia yet. But
I think for me, it really reawakened a creativity in me that says I want to do something creative. Yeah, but I'm not sure what that looks like.
Yeah, we were kind of both at that conclusion at the end of it and thinking, we want to do something. We feel very much called to do something creative. Brad's incredibly creative, and I feel like I've been given some creativity there too. And just doing something together was something we kind of been dreaming about. And then, man, we get a chance to go back to Hutch Moot this year because it's the first time that they've had it since in person. Yeah, in person since the 2019 Hutch Moot. That was the last one we went to. So kid could not be more excited about that. There's a big group of our friends from Birmingham going. That's going to be fun to kind of debrief with. So there may be some
have a little debrief episodes, maybe.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. We may even do a debrief episode, or maybe even do a book study or something like that on what we're talking about. And then we're going to try to tack on a fishing trip. We haven't
on the Elk. We're going to try to go over to the Elk.
That's kind of what I'm hoping. I'm hoping we can maybe try to go on the Elk in October, which I think is a gorgeous time to be up there.
Yeah.
Then in November, Brad, tell us about our trip we got in November.
Well, we talked in one of our episodes about we were in North Georgia and didn't have a great experience.
Yeah.
We had some bad rain. We had a bad experience with some guides. That was just it wasn't awesome. But the awesome thing is, one of the guys that was with us recommended, it had rained a bunch, and recommended let's try the Nuntula. Mm-hmm. We talked about that a little bit, and Hugh was with us on that trip, and we went over and explored this small stream in this Chattahoochee National Forest called the Nuntutla. And my goodness, was it a beautiful little place. And we said, we're coming back here. We
Yeah.
got to come back here to fish here, not to fish the Toccoa, but to come fish and explore the Nuntutla. So there's a group of guys that's coming together that's going to go up in November. We're going to camp. We're going to, because there's a Forest Service road that follows the Nuntutla up into, this forest it goes for a long, long, long way. And all along that road are these primitive campsites, first come, first serve. And so one of our pals is going to go, I think he's going to get to go up there a little early. He's going to go ahead and stake the claim
Oh, cool.
on some sites, and we're all going to caravan and camp out together and fish the Nuntutla with a group of friends. And there's a new friend of mine that we've met that's going to go. It's going to go with us, and he's a very, very gifted videographer. He does all kinds of video work. He's done some stuff for Alabama State Parks systems, and he does a lot of wedding videos. Will Braswell is his name. For Him Films is the name of his video company, and we're gonna see what happens.
Yeah, looking forward to the footage that he might get, and and he's a good story.
We're gonna dabble a little bit in putting some videos together and see what comes creatively comes out of that trip. But it's a beautiful place. I mean, the lighting, the tree canopy, super high. It's a great, great, great place. So looking forward to some storytelling up there.
Got a couple of new things.
Campfire.
Yeah, by campfire.
With some coffee and bacon.
So far, my largest rainbow trout to date came off the Nuntutla.
Oh,
really?
Wow.
Yeah. Of course, that was on NCF Farms, which is divided up into 4 sections. Mm-hmm. We usually stay at the farmhouse over there, but gosh, you talk about some incredible fish. They don't pellet feed them as much as they do other areas, and so they get a lot of their nutrients from the bugs that are in the creek. But I had a 24.25-inch rainbow over there that was just an absolute blast in that little bitty creek. And just took me for a run.
That big old fish.
The freaking submarine.
Yeah, it's beautiful. I'll share some pictures. It's incredible.
Oh, I'd love to see that. Get us fired up,
man.
We got a couple.
We're going to be fishing the public waters. I don't think.
Yeah, we might not be on the farmland.
I think we're going to be down there on the pellet fish.
I was going to say, you talk about catching the largest. I was thinking, well, I think I caught the smallest rainbow of my life where I was.
I did too. Yeah, it was probably
up above that section.
Yeah, I was north of that.
Well, and what I'm excited about is getting up and really in October and catching, in that, fall season of early November, late October, hopefully getting up high and maybe catching some of those little brookies.
Yeah.
And seeing a little brook trout, because they are on some of those upper sections of the Nuntutla. So I would really love to see just a colorful, beautiful fish.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but a couple of new things. And, I realize I'm looking at the time, we're going longer than we had a lot to talk about. We had a lot on and a lot to look forward to. So the last couple of things that we want to share, we got some outstanding looking hats. Yeah. There's Storied Outdoors hats that are, we've talked about them on our Instagram. If you're looking on YouTube right now, there's a great looking dry fit, perfect hot weather hat made by Boco. And we're excited about those. You can order those on the website. And then the other thing we're excited about is partnering with some friends of ours, Brian Rowley and his wife, the owners of Growly Leather. And they're friends of ours. They actually go to my church, but they have a leather company that they operate, an online store called Growly Leather. And we'll have that in the show notes for you.
Mm-hmm.
But they've given us a specific code, TSO, the Storied Outdoors TSO 2022, and that'll get you a 15% discount on their website. We're actually
they make some
not making
stuff.
anything off this. I just asked him. I was like, man, I'd really love to partner with you guys. I love what they do. I love their work. I've personally owned a couple of things that If you're looking on YouTube, and I've got
Wow.
this leather, it's actually for my pipes. It's a handmade by the Rallies, leather made pipe bag. My other thing, we did the giveaway. If you were part of the giveaway on Instagram, we had one of his journals, and it was just like this one. It's a Growly leather journal, and this one's seen some wear, but it's got the refills.
Very nice.
In there. These are the, I guess it's like the moleskin refills. He's got different sizes. A couple of them been given. This one was a gift that was given to me. It's a little wallet size. We gave these away at our men's retreat, and these fit like the field notes book. So this is a leather field notes
Very cool
notebook, the various sizes. And then my favorite one that I do most of my writing in is, I think both me and you, Bryan, have this. This is this is a Rabbit Room edition of one of their big journals, and it's just this great, beautiful journal.
High quality leather. I mean, just
oh my goodness, man.
just high quality.
Here's another thing that we use these at the church. We'll buy a bulk of these at the church, are like leather bookmarks. I love these leather bookmarks that he makes, and so our church uses them. We got a little stamp made with our church logo on it. So he does a lot of that, and he has the Storied Outdoors logo on there too. So you might be able to, if you request it, you might be able to get that stamped onto something if it's big enough. If it's big enough, it has to be of a good size. Actually, I'm wearing the hat currently. There's the hat with the leather logo stamped into it.
Such a good looking stamp, man. That is awesome.
He was so kind to make that for us, and I treasure all of my my products that I have. I don't have it here. It's on my guitar at the church, but I have a leather strap that he gave me for my guitar. That's it's heirloom. All of this is the heirloom quality stuff. It's all of the journal inserts are all things that they're standardized moleskin size journal entries, so you'll always be able to get a refill for them. But man, the thing I don't have is he makes a couple of briefcases that are they're magnificent. My favorite is the Finch briefcase. I guess it's named after Atticus Finch, the great the character in To Kill a Mockingbird, the lawyer. It's a beautiful, beautiful bag. And if anyone's familiar with, well, I don't want to say that. I'll say this: your kids will fight over it when you're gone. And this is the kind of stuff that's made that will last 100 years. It's
good
beautiful.
Stuff.
It's made by people, and these guys are just the best people. And I can't rave about them enough. We just wanted them to, they've been so kind to us and given us some things. And so we wanted to give back to them. So use that code TSO 2022.
I'm gonna go check it out.
Yeah, man. They're amazing people and got an amazing story. Go on their website, read about their story too, because their story is incredible.
Right. Bryan's one of those guys that we want to get on the podcast. He's definitely
creative. He's a maker. I think Wade, that's something that if you followed them like on their Instagram and you looked into his story, he's just one of those guys that's a maker. And whatever he sets his mind to make, he makes with excellence. And man, their leather goods are certainly no exception. They are certainly the bar of, they're creative and they're well made right here in Fairhope, Alabama. By a beautiful and wonderful family. So man, support Growly Leather. Go use that code TSO 2022 for a 15% discount, and bless against them.
Do they have a brick and mortar location, or is it?
I think they have one down in Fairhope. I think they have they have their set up in a store, but they don't have their own personal like storefront. That's Growly Leather. They do.
I'm going to be down there in October, so I'm going to have to go check it out.
They have in downtown Fairhope. They have a they have a little boutique thing where they sell all their stuff.
Nice.
But if you're going to be down here, and I can introduce you to him.
Yeah, he reminds me a lot of Wade.
Man, he's awesome.
Yeah. One thing I wanted to say about Wade, thank you for joining us, Wade, on this podcast episode.
My pleasure.
And if any of you listening know Wade, you know that he goes above and beyond anything he does. If he's going to give you a fly that he's tied, he's going to give you a piece of art that he's made. He's going to give you some stickers. He's going to go above and beyond. I mean, just the whole ministry that he has behind giving these bugs away is above and beyond. But after Brad and I caught these fish, he had just short of a ceremony commemorating what we had just accomplished and a certificate of completion.
We're bona fide. We're bona fide smallmouth.
He gave us a print of one of his drawings of a smallmouth bass that is now in my son's bedroom. He loves that. But I mean, just above and beyond, and just the graciousness and hospitality that he puts out. If you know him, you know that that's true, and it's not just us; it's for anybody that he comes across with. So he is definitely the kind of people that we want to have on the podcast and have exposed to our listeners. And if you haven't had a chance to listen to his episode about talking about his dad and the Sam's One Bug, be sure to listen to that. That is one of my favorite episodes. It's our third most listened to episode out of the 50 that we've done. And so we're very thankful for your friendship, man. And thank you for just your kindness to us.
Thank you, guys. That means a lot. It's humbling. I enjoy it. I enjoy sharing, and I've been told it's probably one of my gifts is giving, and so that's.
I would agree with that.
I get joy out of it, but more importantly, I'm able to attempt to glorify my Maker, and that's what I've really tried to focus on. And so good book tells us if you're going to do something, do it to the best of your abilities to glorify God, right? So
that's
what
evident.
I try to do. Try to improve anytime I can.
Well, Brad, let's do rapid fire, man. We get 5 seconds.
I know.
What's your next adventure?
What's my next adventure? I'm going out to visit my pal Chase Bowers, who's been on the podcast.
Oh man, awesome!
I'm out to visit Chase. I'm going to go spend some time with him. I'm going to lead worship at Temple Bible Church, and then he and I are going to get to go fishing with the guys from Living Waters.
Cool.
Living Waters fly fishing out there, and they have a fly shop, Living Waters fly shop out there in
beautiful place.
I think it's Round Rock, Texas. I think it's where they are, and so I'm excited to go meet those guys and maybe add a Guadalupe bass to my my list of species that I've gotten to had the opportunity to catch this year. So
introduce them to the old brown and orange one bug.
Oh man, I'm gonna take my one bugs with me.
He's probably got one. He seems like a really cool dude.
Chase is awesome. Dear friend, and I'm excited. So yeah, so that and my biggest adventure will be I'm going off in November after our fishing trip. Literally the week after our fishing trip, I'm flying out to with a group to Kathmandu to Nepal.
Wow!
I'll be leading worship.
Goodness gracious!
Leading worship for a group of missionaries there in Kathmandu.
Wow!
And I'll get to see the rooftop of the world. So that's my big adventure.
Man.
Yeah, man. Can't believe it.
Wade, what's on deck for you, man? You guys still trying to head out west?
Possibly. We got my oldest son, we had a destined trip that I had to work at. My family went with me, took a vacation, and Ethan proposed to his fiance Ariel on the beach down there. So
awesome.
He's going to be getting married soon. So a lot going on there. And today, matter of fact, I put in an application for mentorship with the Mayfly Project in Huntsville, Alabama.
Cool.
So I'm excited. I've got a phone call on Thursday to kind of discuss that a little bit more. I'm a little nervous, but at the same time, if nothing else, I know that I can supply them with bugs, right, for the kids. So looking forward to that and seeing what that holds. But
that sounds amazing.
That's pretty much it, other than just tying some new flies and trying to fish when I can. I got a lot of work travel coming up, so just busy.
Man, I love some of the things you've been tying lately. That's really cool stuff. If you guys don't follow Wade, go over to Sam's One Bug on Instagram and see some of the really cool things. And maybe Wade's personal page too. I'm not sure which one you have some of the new stuff on, but man, it's some good stuff.
Thanks. It's on the One Bug page. Yeah, just Brandon and Dave Whitlock, which I've admired Dave's artwork and just his bugs he's tied for the years, and watched him as a kid growing up, going out to the Southeastern Conclave in Mountain Home, and fished out next to him several times on the river there and on the White. And he tied these particular bugs, and Brandon kind of brought them back to life recently on his page. And I saw that and I thought, I got a few of those and I need to try that. And they've turned out so well, and they're super lightweight. And Brandon was talking about how easy they are to cast on a lightweight rod or a glass rod, and I'm looking forward to getting out and testing them and fishing with them. So just enjoy being creative,
I love that. One thing that I've got coming up that I'm really excited about is, we talked about it on the podcast a little bit in a couple of essays. It's the Man Summit weekends that I've taken with some of these some college friends and some friends that just kind of gathered over the last few years. And this year is the first year that we're taking our sons with us. And so it's going to be fun. We all have sons and they're all around the same age. And so we're going to try to make a trip to Gatlinburg at some point this October to be able to take the boys and do some good, fun guy time and maybe even some fly fishing in some of the local areas up there. But yeah, that's going to be something new, and awesome. Hopefully it'll happen. If it doesn't happen, then we're going to punt it to the spring, and it'll happen eventually. But that's awesome. That's the next adventure aside from the other two that Brad and I are going on together. So.
Yeah, that's great. Well, if you're still hanging in there with us at a little over an hour and a half in this conversation, we're so glad you did. I personally had a great time catching up with Bryan and Wade, and there's been a lot going on since the spring, and there's a lot to look forward to. So we're so thankful that you joined us for this conversation. Again, we hope you take advantage of Growly Leather, their discount code TSO 2022, and man, what a great! I can't gush enough about their work and their products. So go shop with them. I mean, Christmas is right around the corner, so there's an inspiration to be had on their shop for Christmas gifts of all kinds. So go check that out, and we look forward to this season and a lot of stories, a lot of new interviews, and I've been so encouraged already in the preparation. I can't wait to see these things published and see you guys be blessed as much as we've been blessed. We've been sitting on a couple of these for a few months now, and several months actually. A couple of them we recorded, early part of the year, just because they said they would do it, and we wanted to be, we better go ahead and get this done, So we snatched them up, and so we got some great stuff ahead. And thank you for joining us so far, and look forward to this new season. So, as we always say when we close, we hope these stories encourage you. We hope they encourage you to write your own stories and share your own adventures in what we love to call the Storied Brad Hill here. There is no better way to share a story than around a campfire. And if you are in the Mobile Bay area, there is no better place to get firewood than our friends at Mobile Bay Firewood. This is a family-owned business, and I personally love using their easy-to-light, kiln-dried firewood in my fire pit. So use promo code MBFTSO for $15 off of your next order at mobilebayfirewood.com. Longtime friends of the podcast, the Growly Leather Company is a family-owned leather goods company in southern Alabama. All of their leather goods are designed and handcrafted to come alongside you in your daily life, share in your adventures, and reflect your character. Bryan and I both enjoy products from Growly Leather. So visit growlyleather.com and use promo code TSO2022 for a 15% discount at checkout. Find you a leather journal and fill it with stories from the Storied Outdoors.